that. That's not true at all. But so I'm a podcaster and I'm also a science correspondent for Innovation Nation, which is on CBS. And some people remember me from Brainchild, which is a Netflix show. And my whole job as of now as a science communicator is interviewing people, everything from engineers to biologists, people who study sharks to rocket scientists. And so I'm really lucky to get to talk to some of the smartest people in the world and get to ask them how they do what they do and why they do what they do. People who invented digital cameras to Marty Cooper, who invented the cell phone. And so one thing that I love to do is get good advice from them because these are the most accomplished people in the world. And so what I've done is I've gathered some of the advice that I've learned from them, I've gleaned from them over my 10 to 15 years as a science correspondent and a science communicator, and also as someone who studied biological sciences in college as well as film. So, okay, first, you can take notes on this since we don't have a visual. I was going to write this on my chalkboard behind me, but I honestly have no idea why the camera was working a few minutes ago, but isn't. Okay, so feel free to take notes. So the first thing first, ask smart people stupid questions. Ask them not smart questions. It might be scary to ask someone how to do something or how something works or why something doesn't work. And one thing that I've learned so much is ask the stupid questions. It's something that will get you farther than anything else. And let's see, I hope you guys are still hearing me here. It'll get you farther than anything else. So many people are really afraid to ask questions that they feel will embarrass them, and they try to ask questions that will impress the person they're asking. That doesn't help you learn anything. That only tells you something that you already know. No one is born knowing everything. Everyone had to ask. Everyone had to learn. And so, particularly with science and tech, science is about the questions we ask. It's not about what we already know. Every study, every invention, every technological advance was because of a question, was because of an I don't know, or because of a need. And so ask smart people not smart questions. Ask the basic questions because those are often the ones that got them to investigate and achieve what they're achieving. Also, there's someone in the room with the same question and you're doing all of them a favor by asking it. Trust me. One thing I get the most from the people I interview is, that's a great question. I just interviewed Dr. Ronald Gamble, who he is a theoretical astrophysicist at NASA Goddard. I interviewed him this week, and he studies black holes. I cannot tell you how many times he said, we don't know. We don't know. And that's why I do what I do, is because of what we don't know. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to not know something. That is the basis of science. Same with Dr. Kevin Hand, who is a NASA scientist studying astrobiology. The big question is, what's on other planets? We don't know. And so ask smart people stupid questions. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. Another thing, second point, no path is linear. This is about passion as a pathfinder, right? No path is linear. Mine wasn't linear. I studied biology. I also studied film. And then I veered off into doing some other TV for a while that I realized I didn't like. I was good at it. It was a good job, but I didn't like it. It wasn't my passion. And so, you can understand that you start to narrow down where you want to be based on things that you try. Go off, do an offshoot, try something. You might find out that that is your path. That is what you excel at because you love it, because passion is what's going to take you farther down the road than anything else. And you just heard that on the last panel. So this only proves my hypothesis. And so passion is a huge pathfinder. And so I talked to wildlife biologists who started out in vet school and they decided, I don't want to be a vet. I don't want to deal with people as much. I want to deal with tortoises. And so don't be afraid to pivot. It's your life. Do what you want to do, and you only get better at something by trying other things. So no one's path is linear, not even rocket scientists. The other thing, and we just heard this on the last panel, I'm so glad they said it, is failure is success. Failure is success. Failure is success. You will not get better at something without trying it. You will not learn without failing. Everyone thinks, particularly people like me who are type A, engineers, scientists. If you mess up, that means that you're out of the game. And that is not true. If you did that, we would have no knowledge, we would have no science, we'd have no tech. You have to fail. That's how you learn what works, by figuring out what doesn't work. You know, I've hosted ologies for 7 years. I'm really lucky that it is more than a full-time job. I now own a company. I've got several employees. You know, Ologies consistently is a top-rated podcast, and it took me 9 months to figure out the format for it. I kept not being able to get it. And when I did, I clicked and I found it. And so don't be afraid to mess up. That is experimentation. And so my last point is gather your team. Rally the troops, gather the team. You cannot do anything alone. You can't do anything alone well. A lot of times we think I've got to figure this out myself and I can only ask for help or collaboration when I know what I'm doing. That's not how collaboration works. Collaboration is chemistry. It's working with things to see what gets a reaction, to see what works. And I don't know if anyone here remembers this classic shot from the show Connections, 1977, Voyager launch. A man walks into frame right as he points to a rocket and the rocket goes up behind him. Do you guys remember this? This was James Burke, Connections. I'm sure you've seen it. He's got amazing sideburns in it. Well, I interviewed him recently. I worked on a show. I worked on Connections, the latest season of it. I hosted some digital shorts, and I asked him one thing that he would want people to know, and that is 1 + 1 = 3. When you get people in a room together, when you get people on a Zoom together, when you get people collaborating, you get more than the sum of those two people. And one thing that was huge to me was volunteering. I was in a really bummer place in my life. I had just gone through a breakup. My dad was just diagnosed with cancer. I was working on this very glamorous TV show, traveling around the country and the world, but I wasn't happy. It wasn't me. And, you know, I wasn't asking myself questions about what do I want to do. I wasn't using passion to find that path. And the place that made me the happiest was a museum. And I volunteered. A friend suggested it, someone I barely knew, who's now a very dear friend, but she totally changed my life because of her suggestions. I volunteered. I realized I loved being in that environment. And that is what led me to the path I was on. So the more you can get around people who are like-minded or who inspire you, whether it's from an internship, whether it's from volunteering, throw your hat in the ring for things. Do not think you have to wait to be picked. People who wait to be picked don't get picked because people are busy and they're not out there scouting. Throw your hat in the ring. Be a cockroach. Get under doors. Survive longer. And that's how you excel in life. Put yourself out there, because when you gather a team, you get farther, and that team needs you. And one thing that is really important, and I have to remind myself, is that if you don't see someone in the room like you, you belong there even more, because this is about questions to ask and finding solutions. And the more diverse that room is, the more questions that are asked, the more perspectives it can come, you can come from. And so whether or not you're the, only person, the only girl in your robotics class, which I've, talked to, I've given a keynote at robotics lectures before, and I hear that from girls backstage. Or for me, I was told by a major science network that I was great for the job, but they didn't want to hear about science from a woman. And at this point, I had already won an Emmy. I had already been in the field for a long time. I had had multiple Netflix shows. I had accomplished a lot, and they told me they didn't want to hear from people who look like me. And that, I was crestfallen at first. And then, I realized, and I took advice from so many people I've interviewed, and that just means I'm needed more. And since doing what I do, I've been able to, put a spotlight on other people who maybe wouldn't get the mic. And so this also isn't just in work. This is at a party. If you're at a party with all finance people and you're the only scientist there, you might think you don't belong. But let me tell you, like, you're the most interesting person in the room. If you're neurodivergent and you think maybe everyone else isn't, chances are that is factually incorrect, because a lot of us are. But you know, you belong there even more. So any situation where you feel like you don't belong, that room and that environment is benefiting from your presence. And so I'm going to recap. Ask smart people stupid questions. Don't be afraid to ask. That includes yourself. Ask yourself what you love. Ask yourself, are you doing what you love? What do you have the most passion for? Because that is going to take you way farther than something that you're faking at. Trust me. Number 2, no one's path is linear. Failure or success. No one's path is linear. Experiment, see what you like. If you feel like you failed on something, you didn't fail. You just got it one step closer to success. Failure is part of success. And third, gather a team, work with each other. 1 + 1 = 3. Put yourself out there, volunteering, internship. Because those connections also later on the line, you might realize, oh, shoot, I need someone who's really good at this. You know exactly who to call. Or for me, I really love having interviewed so many people. When someone comes to me and says, I need an expert in weasels, I'm like, I got someone for you. You need a skunk expert? I got the number in my phone. So this only helps, you know, each other, and that'll help you one day too. So no one belongs there more than you too. So I'm going to wrap it up there. We're going to have about 7 minutes of questions. One of the biggest questions I hope you ask is, Allie, why isn't your camera working? And that's an excellent question. And maybe I'll find out one day. Maybe I won't. Who knows? But if you have any questions for me, I would love to hear them. I've got some that are on the portal. Also, I hear you guys are such an amazing audience. So this is very exciting for me. Let me see one second. Let me see what we got. All right. If I had to pick something in STEM to become an ologist in, what would I choose? I love bugs. I love bugs. I love bugs. It would probably be a coleopterologist. That is the study of beetles. That would be a beetle scientist. The range of diversity in beetles is truly boggling. I think it's 300,000 species as opposed to 4,000 species of mammals. So I also feel like I'd never be out of work. But I have been called an ologyologist as someone who studies ology, and I'll take that, because that is something that I already love doing, and I'm already doing that dream job. So if I could talk to one expert I haven't met before, who would it be? Let me tell you about Jerry DeGrew. Dr. Jerry DeGrew, I think, skunk expert living in the outskirts of Albuquerque. He has been on my list for 4 years. His email signature says friend to skunks. And this man knows a lot about skunks, and he is their biggest advocate. So I was supposed to go to Albuquerque last month to interview him, but I got food poisoning. So he's on my docket. Sounds like an amazing guy. And anyone whose license plate says skunks, that's someone I want to talk to. Let me see. What's my favorite part of my job? What do you hate about your job? If you're not familiar with my podcast, Ologies, these are the 2 questions that I ask at the very end of every session, every interview. I'm going to start with what I hate, because that's what we talk about, because I never like to wrap up a question on a bummer. Okay, what do I hate about my job? I hate when my camera doesn't work, but that only happens once in a blue moon when I'm talking to NASA. One thing I hate about my job is sometimes social media. I hate it because you can be on there forever posting. And if I do that and I'm always social mediaing my job, I don't have time to make the show. So it's a really tough balance between posting stuff on social media about the show and actually making the show. So I have a really hard time parsing when to do what. My favorite part of my job is I love sharing what I've learned. I love taking all this information that I've gleaned from people who are very smart and telling other people the secrets. My other favorite part of my job is connecting with an ologist or a scientist and getting really excited to meet them. Every time I interview someone, I feel like it's a new friend I get to make. And the thing I love asking them the most is what they're passionate about. And again, passion is a Pathfinder. You know, you're interviewing someone who might be an expert in mechanical watches or a rocket scientist, and they're used to doing really dry official interviews. But as soon as you ask them what gets them out of bed, or what was the first moment they knew that they were interested in this, their faces light up. And I love that moment when I see someone turn from a professional to a human being who is really good at something. So I love that. And that's how I approach a lot of interactions with people that I've just met. I love asking couples how they met because usually you get a great story. Someone said, I loved 100 Humans on Netflix. What was the best part of that experience? Um, I loved doing that show. It was a wild ride. It was 100 people that we had on set every single day. Um, One thing that was very memorable about that is that show, we shot it in 2019, 2018, and it premiered March 11th, I think, 2020. So if you remember, if you have ingrained in your brain what early March 2020 was, a lot of people were home and watching Netflix. And the weirdest part about that was watching how many people high-fiving and hugging right as we're on lockdown. So that was a really weird timing, because I was like, look at all these people. Um, how do I stay so calm during tech problems? You know what? I know it doesn't matter. This sucks right now, but again, I'm a podcaster, so you guys can just picture me whatever you want. I like to remember when I'm dealing with anxiety, will this matter on my deathbed? And if the answer is no, then I stop caring. If something goes a little bit wrong, say, well, I think about this on my deathbed, and I guarantee you, I love you guys, but I'm not going to think about my camera not turning on when I'm taking my last breath. So that's how I kind of brush it off. Um, let's see. I'm going to do one more of these. Is there any ology that I am putting off for one reason? These are also great questions. There's two that I can't get to, but is there an ology that I'm putting off for some reason or another? I'm so glad you asked, and it's one that is my biggest challenge. Is metrology, is the study of measurements, and I know it's going to be fascinating, and I know I just have to find the right metrologist. Especially as an American, we're dealing with Fahrenheit, people. We're dealing with feet and inches. The rest of the world pretty much is like metric, people, metric. And so I think that's going to be an interesting one. I want to find the right metrologist. Yeah, talking about measurements, all that stuff. So and thank you for your other questions. I love doing what I do. I love talking to you guys. Thank you so much for, again, bearing with me. I swear we had 2 tech rehearsals for this, and my camera was working for both of them. So it's some sort of glitch. But thank you again, just so much for doing this. You know, on a closing note, just remember, no one knows anything until they learn it, and figure out what you love the most. Honestly, that is rocket fuel. That's going to get you farther than anything. Um, if I had to host a podcast about the British royals, I don't think I'd be very good at it, because it's not my passion. You know, other people might not want to talk to a skunk expert. I could do it all day. So figure out who you are, and you'll figure out what you're good at. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I hope you're picturing me looking even better than I do. Have a great rest of the time. Thank you so much for having me. Imagination Aviation. This has been a pleasure, and I hope to actually see you sometime soon.